What's up, guys? So today I'm going to be doing a video on Burmese pythons versus reticulated pythons. Obviously this isn't a versus video, it's just as pets, temperament, what behaves better, what behaves like what. We've got a couple examples to show you today, not that one. Alright, this sweet little girl right here is clearly the Burmese python for the video. And this is going to be one of the retics for the video. And then we've also got the big fella down here. If you saw the last video, I talked about wanting to make a video with more of him in it. He's not striking at the glass and trying to kill me yet, so today might be a good day to get him out alone. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna go ahead and take the Burmese python out. We're gonna jump right into the video. Alright guys, so main purpose of this video is just going over the different behaviors of the two snakes. They're two snakes that are becoming much more common in private collections now than they used to be. A lot of people are getting them as first-time snakes. I really don't see anything wrong with that personally, especially if you get them as a baby and you grow them up. You're going to learn a lot about them as you go, and that's a different video. I plan on making a video about beginner reptiles, or the lack thereof necessarily. But so you see the way she's behaving. She's much slower, and I don't want to directly say less intelligent, but if you've never handled a reticulated python, you can really just feel the difference in intelligence between the two of them. And like I said, I don't mean to say that this is an unintelligent snake by any means, but when you take the two out, she's very curious still. She's very tame, just like the retics. I can't speak for all of them, but you can get any snake to be tame, really. But she's much more lethargic in her movements, much more lethargic in her enclosure. Her movements are going to be a lot slower, still very curious, but in my opinion, much more handleable for a single person. Obviously, the Burm in this video is going to be much smaller than either of the retics, but at a young size, they're much more handleable, especially for young keepers or for a first-time owner of larger snakes. I would highly recommend getting a young snake, and overall, I would recommend a Burm over a retic for your first-time snake, for your first-time large snake. I wouldn't go and say, oh, you have to get a boa, but first you have to have a corn snake, and then you get a ball python, then you can have a boa, then you can have a Burm. I think that's all crap. If you want to jump into keeping giant snakes straight off the gate, go for it. I just recommend you get small ones, do a lot of research before, and that you're fully prepared for what this thing will be when it is an adult. But when you get them as a young snake and you really just learn about their temperaments, you can become quite versed with them quite quickly. It's not rocket science. It's just more about when they're big, knowing their behaviors, knowing how to read their body language, and etc. But you can really see she's really telling the story for herself here. Very relaxed, very curious, but very relaxed. Her movements are going to be slow. I can handle her with just this one hand. I've got a big snake hook that I use, and I will still use the snake hooks to get her out of the enclosure, just so she remains hook trained, but she doesn't need it. Even with a food response out of this girl, we're able to go in there and just hand right to the nose. And she might do a little fake bite at you. She might try and fake you out and just bump into you with a closed mouth, but she's never given us a full strike. But she will pound food very easily. She'll take on the smaller side of a medium rat right now. We don't try and feed her that all the time just because she'll get massive. You can still see a little bit of the lump of where her food was right here. She ate just a couple days ago. But I'm gonna go ahead and pull out the smaller of the two retics, and I'm quite certain that right off the gate, you guys are gonna see the difference in the handleability and just the personality and etc. Alright guys, so I realized that not all of you might know what I mean by hook training, and the camera actually just fell in this girl's cage, so she's already a little bit defensive right off the gate, and I've said that about 9 times in the video. I'm gonna go ahead and stop. She's already a little bit defensive right away, so this is what a larger snake hook's gonna look like. You can go ahead and get one of the small ones from PetSmart or something if you only really have small snakes and you're still interested in hook training, but you can literally make these yourself. This is a golf club with a nice little thin piece of aluminum bent in there and then sanded to a nice smooth non-sharp point. That way you can get underneath the snake. I don't really use it for picking the smaller ones up. But this is what I mean by hook training. She's gonna know when I go in the cage and I put the hook on her, maybe even just push her head away from me, that's gonna try and negate her feeding response, because we will never go into the cage with hands or a hook if it's feeding day. If it's time for her to eat, we go in there with the grabber for the rat, and that's all that enters the cage. And if it's not, we go in there with the hook before we go in there with hands. And now I'm extremely comfortable that I can go ahead and get in there and pet her, do whatever. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video, and then I'm gonna pull her out, and then we're gonna start the video, guys. All right, guys, so here she is. You can see, obviously, she's much, much larger, but even right as soon as she came out, it's already taken 2 hands to keep her still, keep her in one place. See, she's just as curious of what's around her. She wants to go look at everything, wants to get inside of the caiman's enclosure specifically. She always does. And, but just her movements, her body language, her speed of movement is dramatically quicker. And that's how it's going to be with any reticulated python. Especially one that isn't quite as nice as she is. It's going to be even faster, and that's just flightiness. She's not really flighty. She can be a little bit head shy from time to time, but this is the kind of movement that I'm talking about when handling a retic, and that is why I went ahead and said that you can just feel the difference in the intelligence from these animals. She knows I'm pushing her this way to get her away from over there, but she knows that's where she wants to go, so she's going to keep fighting for it. Not to say that she's a bad snake or that retics are unenjoyable to handle. I absolutely love holding every single retic that I've ever handled, ever. Even the mean ones, you know, as long as you keep their heads controlled. And like you've probably seen me do a few times, once again, like a lot of you looking at this video might be new to the large snake breeds. And something that you want to be really cognizant of is this gap right here, which is obviously your throat, and not letting a section of the animal cross your throat without a hand blocking. That way you can easily redirect the snake, because this snake I'm not too worried about, but the larger retic that I'm going to pull out here in a second, I'll go ahead and you'll see then. But with him, he's much stronger, and I'd be slightly more concerned that, seeing just stuff like this, the knots that they'll throw, just trying to move, they're much more agile is a good word, and much more entertaining to handle, in my opinion, especially at this size right here before they start putting on girth. Retics get very long and skinny before they start to get wide, but once they start to get wide, they start doing both at the same time. It's almost like a little snake puberty they go through. Like I was saying about the larger snakes, when they start throwing portions of their body across your throat, I can 100% guarantee you that snake is not trying to constrict you, or and even when this girl does it, she's not trying to constrict me. She doesn't know, but just her simply grabbing across my throat at her size wouldn't be too bad, because I'm confident in my ability to pull her away. But the larger snake, it might not be the case, and so it's important to get into the habit of doing things like that. Even when they're small, don't let a snake put coils around your throat, even if you're saying like, oh, it's small, it's not going to hurt. If you're trying to get into keeping larger snakes and it's young, do it from the beginning. That way you're not surprised one day when it throws a band around your throat and all of a sudden you feel that blood cut off to your head, and then you might be in for a little bit more than you asked for. Well, this is a beautiful, very relaxed girl right here, and I think she really demonstrated exactly what I was talking about with the difference between handling the two. It can be very overwhelming for a new keeper, no matter how old you are, or for a very young keeper, or just your child. If you're trying to let your child hold it, it can be extremely overwhelming for them to have this much snake, this thin and this long, just trying to go everywhere. I've got the caimans over here just begging for the snake to slither into his enclosure. It's not going to happen, but the snake thinks it will. So I'm going to go ahead and put her down. I'm going to get the big guy out, and then you guys will be able to see not just how big he's gotten, but how fun he still is to handle. So I'll see you there. Alright, so depending on this guy's behavior will depend if this makes it to the video. He's by no means a mean snake, an aggressive snake. He just is a larger snake, and he does have a feeding response. Like, I can see that he's already a little bit excited at the glass, so I'm going to go ahead and pop his cage open with my hands. then I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to let the hook drop it, getting my face a little too close for my comfort. I'm just going to let him check me out for a second. I'm just going to look at each other. I'm going to offer up the hook to him. Get him to retreat a little. He might seem a little angry to you guys, but that's just their responses that they have to him. That's not a hook. I almost grabbed his food grabber, which could have turned out less than pleasant if that got a feeding response out of him. So we've got his hide pushed up there. He doesn't quite seem angry. He's a little flighty. Well, as soon as we get the big fella pulled out here, see right there, right there. Now he knows. Now he knows there's not food involved in this little situation. And he becomes an absolute joy to handle. Just like I said earlier in that last segment, watch out for bands around the throat. So we're gonna go back to the other spot and continue the video. Alright guys, so we got the big male out. This is the lavender albino golden child. You guys have seen him from an extremely small hatchling in the beginning of, I almost said the channel, that's not true, in the beginning of his life. And now here he is, cooking at a clean 6, maybe a little bit more than 6 feet long. I don't have a weight on this guy, but he's getting very big, and he's getting near the point where it would be recommended for even an experienced keeper to handle him with 2 people present. Well, you're yourself and 1 other person, just out of precaution, but I can fully support his weight in 1 hand still, so it's more or less when they get to the size that you can no longer as 1 person hold his weight up. And see, once they get to this size, it's a lot less of roping him in with 2 hands, guiding him where you want him to go, and it becomes a lot more of being cognizant of the head, knowing where he's going, and supporting his body, because his body is a lot heavier now. And so if he's holding on to you by just your hand, and like just on 1 section of his body and the rest of him is hanging, you're automatically going to have a cranky snake. You're going to have a snake that you don't know why doesn't want to be handled, and that's just because you're handling him incorrectly. And over video sometimes it's kind of difficult to really see the size of him, but I can't even, if I squeezed I could, but just a soft grip, I can't get 1 hand around this guy anymore. And see, here again comes that agility and just that intelligence that these retics don't share with the Burms. If you got a Burm this exact size, at this length the Burmese python would be a lot thicker, a lot heavier, just because of how they build, how they grow and the way their bodies build, and he wouldn't be moving around so much. It becomes a lot more like holding a large boa. If any of you have ever done that, if not, I've got a perfect specimen back home in Kentucky that I'll go ahead and show you guys in another video. I've shown her on the channel before, but like I said a couple videos ago, I really intend on getting more into making the videos again now that I'm going to be bringing a lot more of my animals back home. But holding a large Burm becomes a lot more like holding a big boa. They become very docile, very lethargic in their movements. You'll still get one that'll sit on your shoulders and move around, but you really only have this head portion moving around. You're not going to have everything going on behind my back here. They're not really going to be trying to get down off you so much. They still will, but not quite as readily. They're just going to be chilling. They're really the puppy dogs of the giant snakes. And see, like I was telling you guys, this guy is just so relaxed that I am fully confident in just going up and grabbing his head. He didn't like it too much. He tensed up his body, but he's not going to strike at me. Now that I've got him out, now that, you know, I implemented the hook and then the hands, you know, he's just fully relaxed, which is just good keeping in general, good keeping habits. But I think this has gone on long enough. I think you guys can really see the differences in the behaviors and just the overall handleability of both snakes. And personally, I would recommend owning a Burmese python before you jumped into a retic, but at the same time, it really doesn't matter, because we got this guy from a little tiny baby. And if you implement good keeping habits, good handling habits from a very young age with the snake, by the time he is fully grown, you're going to be handling him with plenty of knowledge. You're going to know exactly how that individual snake behaves, which is what it's all about. You can know as much as you want about retics, and then pick up a random retic that you think is fine, and it bites you right in the nose. It's bound to happen, and when you know the animal personally, obviously, it's far less likely to happen, which is why I disagree with the whole retics are beginner snakes. Should everyone own retics? No. But if you have the means and the space and the time and the willingness to learn, absolutely. They're an absolute joy to handle, an absolute joy to watch. And I absolutely love keeping them. I love keeping Burms, love keeping boas, I love keeping ball pythons. I love keeping leopard geckos. I personally see the value in every single one of the reptiles in our hobby. And if you don't, then you don't, and you're missing out on a lot. But thank you guys for watching. I'm going to be posting another video that's just like this one. It's going to be on ball pythons and boas, just like this was on Burmese pythons and retics. This one's going to be on ball pythons and boas, same topics, and I will see you guys there.